We are back here on the show, the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, to bring you guys my second part of picking all the winners and ultimately the losers of this week. We went through the 1 through 7 games yesterday. We didn't have enough time to go through all of it, obviously, so I decided to split it up into 2 parts. Now getting into the second half today, there's a couple games that are definitely noteworthy, and there are some pretty good ones in here, continuing on from last week and how there were a couple great games last week, and now we have the pleasure of picking some of these winners again. And 7 games here again to pick from. We're going to exclude the Monday night game because I could just do that on Monday, obviously, next week. So starting on the Seahawks traveling to New England. The Seahawks are actually favored in this game on the road, but not by that much. And you look at New England, both of these teams coming in 1-0. New England, definitely an upset last week. I don't think a lot of people expected, or really nobody expected them to win that game, but it's great for them. They already have a win. They're 1-0 in so early this year. And it was in large part because of their great defense, great running game against Cincinnati, and including the Seahawks now into this conversation. Both teams' defenses played very well in week 1. The Seahawks did a good job of ultimately shutting the door on Bo Nix, intercepting him twice, creating a lot of uncomfortable situations for him as well, at least throwing the ball. So both defense come into this riding a little bit of momentum. Both quarterbacks are very similar in this game because they're experienced guys that have been around a couple organizations, and it doesn't feel, not to their discredit or anything, but it doesn't feel like they're the future of these organizations, obviously. So they're very, very reliable veterans in this position in Geno Smith and Jacoby Brissett that they're good enough to, win you some games or at least keep you in them, but also they're not going to lose you the game. So that's what makes this pick so fascinating to me. You have great weapons on the side of the Seahawks on both ends. Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, Leonard as well on the defensive line. Then DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker had a big game. And then for the Patriots, it might not stand out too much, but they had good performances from Ramondre Stevenson. He doesn't get enough credit. And just their game plan overall. That's what I think could make the difference in this game. You have 2 new head coaches as well, very defensive-minded in this game with Mike Macdonald and Gerard Mayo. But in terms of my pick, I think... it's funny. I had the Seahawks down. On this paper because I like their offense more right now. And Kenneth Walker and Tyler Lockett may be out, so I could change my pick. I'm looking at it now. I don't want to change and backtrack on it, but I feel like one of them or both of them could not play in this game, so I'm going to switch it and go to New England. I think they're going to have another great defensive game. Christian Gonzalez, another guy that didn't get talked about enough in his coverage of Jamar Chase. I feel like he's going to do the same to DK, and then at that point, playing a better defense, in my opinion, than Denver. I think Geno could struggle a little bit, especially if Kenneth Walker is not playing. Give me New England to go to 2-0 this season. To join the Bills at the top of that division is something nobody was expecting, but I like the Patriots in this one now. And then the second game, we have the Saints going to Dallas to play the Cowboys, obviously, in their home debut. I'd say that Dallas rose to the challenge last week, genuinely. They played a great game on both sides of the ball, on all three facets, actually, because they had a punt return as well. Whereas the Saints played a bad team that I think made them look a little bit better. Like, I feel like a lot of teams that play the Panthers will. No offense to the Panthers, but it is the reality. The Saints are an okay team, but I think against Dallas, I was more impressed with them going to Cleveland, beating a good defense, than I was the Saints playing the Panthers, right? A shout out to Cowboys linebacker DeMarvion Overshown. I want to get the name right. DeMarvion Overshown, because he's a second-year linebacker now coming in, starting for the Dallas Cowboys defense. I had no idea who he was, but in that game against the Browns, he recorded 11 tackles, a sack, and was flying around all over the place. He really put his name out there. Number 13, if you want to keep an eye on him this game. Very impressed with him Eric Kendricks played very well, both of those guys in the middle of the field. And obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence looked good. Micah Parsons did his thing. Trayvon Diggs looked pretty well on top of that. So I'm very surprised with some of these guys in some spots where I wasn't expecting them to have necessarily playmakers, but DeMarvion Overshown, definitely a guy to keep an eye on, and he impressed me a lot in that game after I went back and looked at, like, who the heck was this linebacker that I missed. But I don't think the Saints just have enough playmakers to keep pace with the Cowboys overall. And I think Dallas wins in this game similarly to how they won in Cleveland. And then we move on to the Giants traveling to the nation's capital, playing the Washington Commanders. A matchup of former LSU teammates just from last year. Malik Neighbors on one side, Jaden Daniels on the other. I'm sure it was funny when they had their little wager going on and the NFL kind of told them not to, and kind of slapped them on the wrist and made them go to these classes about the dangers of wagering and betting and things like that. If you guys haven't seen it, it was prominent a couple weeks ago when I saw it, and I thought it was pretty funny how that all played out. But now they get a chance to square off against each other early on in the year, and I'm leaning towards the Commanders just because they put up 20 points in a loss, largely because of Jaden Daniels, and I think that just put a spotlight on how special Jaden Daniels is, more so than I am still worried about the Commanders and their lack of weapons. I think they could do a better job of getting Terry McLaurin the ball. He only finished with 2 receptions in that game against the Bucs. It was a tough one on the road, but now they're back at home. They're going to have everybody excited, more excited than they have been in the last 10 years or something, with Jaden Daniels having a very promising quarterback on their team now, and I feel like he's gonna really show us what he's made of in this game. The Giants looked like a mess on offense last week at home, and now the Washington defense didn't, look great either, but it could be a reason for this game to be a little bit closer. The Washington defense, maybe not one of the better ones, definitely not. And the Giants offense, where it is right now, I don't think anybody can say that they're too confident in it. So this game could be pretty close overall. I feel like Jaden Daniels and how special he is. I like Dan Quinn. I like Cliff Kingsbury. I feel like we're going to see the full package this week. Give me the Commanders in this one to send the Giants to 0-2. Then, talking about the Commanders playing the Buccaneers last week, now the Buccaneers will travel to Detroit in a playoff rematch from the I want to say the wild card round or the divisional round, the divisional round last year in the playoffs. A close game towards the end of it. The Buccaneers defense kind of showed up late, but now it's the offense that kind of has picked it up a little bit, and the Buccaneers offense is riding into this game a little bit more dangerous, threatening, I would say. They just came off of a 30-point win, putting up 37 points on the Washington Commanders. A great showing also from their new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, and it's a good test for Detroit, I think, after playing the Rams, but Puka getting hurt, their offensive line getting hurt and everything. Now they're going up against Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan looked great, Rachaad White, also Baker looking fantastic as well. It's another good offense to test this Detroit defense as well. For this young secondary also with Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold as well, a first-year player. I'm interested by that matchup. You look at last week how Stafford threw for over 300 yards. Cooper Kupp had 110 yards as well. Now you kind of think of what this offense for the Bucs could do to that defense, and it could be closer, I think, than a lot of people believe. No Antoine Winfield for the Bucs defense, which is going to be huge with how relentless and mean the Lions are. To have that guy missing is certainly going to be a loss. I need to see pressure on Jared Goff. I didn't really see that too much, and I feel like that's going to be the difference in this game, how good the offensive line is for the Lions. I think the Lions win another one. I believe they will in another close game in this one. Then the Rams play the Arizona Cardinals. Injuries for the Los Angeles Rams could make this game a little scary, because they're so depleted everywhere on offense. Their offensive line's banged up. No Puka Nacua, so who's going to step up? Instead of him, the Arizona defense isn't great. They gave up that big lead that they had to the Buffalo Bills, but Now they're a little bit at home, so it could be a bit of a boost now. You learned so much in the first week. Hopefully they're able to apply it in this game. The Rams defense also looked good. They look solid against the Lions and how good offensively they are with a lot of their young players. So that's reassuring. And with that in mind, the Arizona offense also looked good on the road without basically Marvin Harrison Jr. So that matchup is going to be interesting, right? The Cardinals offense trying to get going and the Rams trying to build momentum off of last week where they didn't win, but I think their defense played better than a lot of people will give them credit for. And that's why I'm going to go and trust the Rams in this game. I'm going to trust Sean McVay to come up with some genius plan to escape with a win here. It could be close again because Arizona could be a bit threatening now with more of an offensive firepower. Then the last two games to close it out. Cincinnati at the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of talk from the Cincinnati players. I won't go into it just yet. That's the next segment I wanted to talk about. But just where Kansas City is right now compared to what I saw from the Bengals, offensively and defensively especially. There's not going to be Marquise Brown in this game. He's unfortunately going on IR. But fortunately for the Chiefs, Travis Kelce didn't really have an effect on last week's game. The running game was there, but it was mostly the Xavier Worthy coming out party to kind of make his presence known in the NFL. So that's a great thing. I feel like the Chiefs they look like they're weeks ahead of where the Bengals are. And I know the Bengals always start off bad, but it doesn't mean that it's good that they always start off bad. So give me the Chiefs in Arrowhead to take this one. And then the last one, Sunday Night Football, the Bears traveling to Houston. Potentially no Rome Odunze in this one. Keenan Allen didn't practice that much this week, but he could be able to suit up in that game, so that's good for them. Caleb Williams looking to try and bounce back after a shaky performance last week where they won, but he didn't score. The offense didn't score an offensive touchdown. So yeah, you want to kind of have a bounce back game, but it could be tough with Smith missing guys like Rome Odunze, maybe Keenan Allen. So it gives me a bit of hesitation to really be confident in them. Houston, they're the Texans. It's weird to say they're the Texans. Tank Dell, Nico, Stephon Diggs look great. CJ looked a little bit like he was missing a step, but I think that's just going to be all erased at home now in week 2. And they discovered a running game, right? They have a capable running back in Joe Mixon that's going to make this team look extraordinary. Now to spread everybody out with these weapons, Dalton Schultz in there as well, and just creating more space for Joe Mixon. He just put up 159 yards on the Colts. It was a close game, but I like all the different ways that the Texans can attack you. I think it's going to be too much for the Bears. The Texans will win this game and move to 2-0. And that's pretty much all the games from yesterday's episode to today's. Let me know what you guys think of my picks and leave your guys' thoughts on anything I said or giving me your guys' picks as well. But that'll do it for that segment. We're going to move on to the next segment of the show. I kind of hinted at it during the preview there. We're going to talk about the Bengals and Chiefs game. A lot of smack talk coming from the Cincinnati Bengals players. Very interesting comments from Jamar Chase and their defensive back, Cam Taylor-Britt. We're going to get into what they said and just diving a little bit more on this Bengals team and whether or not they can turn the corner like they usually do. That is coming up right after this break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.